I feel like in so much in trauma work, a lot of what happens is people tend to dissociate or detach or go outside of their bodies just so that they can even survive and get through.
Yes.
If somebody out there is in the midst of any form of like suffering, trauma, abuse, what would you recommend in terms, like, because sometimes those, we're not even consciously in control of what our mind is doing. What would you recommend somebody who might be experiencing this right now? Like, how might they be able to interrupt that habit or that pattern that's starting to form?
Well, I'd say really most fundamentally, most essentially is the breath. Bringing the breath in, because the breath, when we disassociate, you'll notice your breath gets constricted and it's leaving the body. But the breath brings us in, and the breath takes us into where the tension's being held, and that's the way that we can actually dissolve it. It's a matter of turning towards the pain, the intensity, and actually relaxing into the body, breathing down into the belly, relaxing, open the belly, like really melting from the inside out as we face it. And it's like even in a stance, you can really feel down into your feet, like you're softening through your feet, connecting into the earth, grounding in all the way through the body, softening up the belly and meeting it. And so it's not a pushing into, a forceful pushing into the pain, it's a meeting it and moving towards it very gently, and again without any force, and with the breath. So we're breathing into it to spread it open. And it's really a process essentially of denumbing, because we've been so conditioned to numb against intensity, to numb against all these pains. So it's a process of unraveling those defense mechanisms that want to keep us in the perimeter, that keep us from really fully feeling what's here. So as we breathe into it and soften into it, instead of turning away or going with when we find that we're actually going into a defense mechanism, the process of interrupting that in that moment is interrupting that ingrained neural groove. Because that's what it is. It's a habit. It's a pattern. But we have command over that. And so when we notice it's happening, interrupting it in process and diverting it in another direction, into a direction that's life-affirming. So instead, again, turning towards it. And even if you're not actually moving into it, but you're just turning to face it, and you're breathing into it, just that in itself is enough to start with. And then, even if it's just a millimeter closer, you're still making progress. You're still establishing a new pattern of relating to it that is life-affirming, that is dismantling those defense structures, so you can discover what's there.
It even I feel like there's a broad spectrum, too, when it comes to trauma or even discomfort, and, it ranges from really intense physical, sexual, emotional abuse to even just, mild discomfort, like in a yoga class when you're in a pose, and sometimes your body is just in discomfort, and they'll tense up, they'll hold their breath, and then a lot of times you'll be instructed to just open, lean into it, breathe into that space that's feeling locked up, and all of a sudden it starts to, you start to be able to surrender into the discomfort, and rather than having to avoid it or get out of it right away and be in that reactive space, you can be with it and integrate it. In terms of your way of being, your way of engaging with life, what advice or support do you offer people that are kind of still locked up a little bit or disconnected and in that place of suffering or self-judgment because of past experiences? What advice or support do you offer those folks?
Well, that's such a complex question, and there's so many levels to answer that on, but really just first dropping in that seed of awareness, that the remembrance that, again, we are, no matter what we've gone through, we are whole at the core. We are unmarred. And so it's just those accumulated veneers of our cultural conditioning, our traumas, that keep us from readily accessing that core. So it really takes that internal true desire activated to want to access the core first and foremost, because that's what ignites that seed. And then it's just providing the proper nourishing conditions to really allow that seed to begin to grow and flourish as we're dissolving through those membranes, dissolving and unraveling, unsheathing those identities that we've taken on that aren't us, the false identities that we live from, but truly it's a dissolution process to arrive back in. So the willingness to dissolve what you've ever known yourself to be, to really allow the truth of who you are to emerge. And it is the choice to nourish, to choose nourishment, choose what is life-affirming, choose what does go right into the core and remind you of who you are.
Oh, it speaks to my heart so much. She's really speaking into that courage and vulnerability. It takes so much courage and vulnerability to sometimes let go of this identity that we've become so comfortable with or conditioned to relate to ourselves as, project into the world, this kind of facade that we sometimes hold up. But I feel like that's true liberation, is being willing to dismantle and dissolve that.
And seek the support that's needed, because we can't do it alone, especially when we've had these patterns that have been ingrained for so long. We really need that support of somebody that can hold that mirror steady, so that we can actually experience the truth of who we are through them, to be reminded, because we need to establish that true reference point of what it even feels like to be in center, to feel who we are. So really seeking the support, along the journey to help us unravel and help us remember, so we can truly live that, because it's, rather than experiencing even in fleeting moments, it's about anchoring that reference point, and then the nourishment and embodying that is what spreads it open, so that becomes the continuum of our experience.
Oh my gosh. Do you feel nourished just listening to her? Feel like I wish you could be sitting next to her right now. This morning I hugged her and I was like, it's like hugging a living human-sized flower. So Amber, will you share just how can people learn more about what you're up to, like really feel into and experience this hope and possibility that you embody and are spreading so vibrantly? How can they connect with you, or tell them a little bit about this call on Friday?
Wonderful. Well, I am doing a call on Friday, a free value-rich training call that will really be a source of nourishment and inspiration. And it's the course. It's a precursor to a course I'm offering. That's going to be a 9-month journey, and essentially I'm creating a very rich, nourishing, coherent womb space for you to dissolve into and rebirth through. So it's really birthing the next evolution of yourself into being. And so in this call, I'll be offering, again, real life experiences. So you can have a tangible, embodied experience of essence, to feel that nourishment, to get a taste of the resonance of what I'll be offering. And in the 9 months, it'll be a very substantial course that won't take much time. It's really going to be 2 90-minute calls a month that are going to be, again, it's going to be an experiential unraveling and plugging in of the latent circuits that we're all designed with but have really been inactive for most of us. So really, again, a coherent space for you to discover yourself within and to live your life into more fullness and bloom all that you are in. So to register for the free call, you can go to orgasmolution.com. And what the heck is orgasmolution, you might be asking?
Sounds fun, doesn't it? I want one.
Not a word I came up with, but after tuning into it, I'm like, okay, I can get behind it, because I like that solution, evolution, revolution are all implied after orgasm. And for me, it's really, part of the transmission is really realizing that for so long, historically, we have grown and evolved through pain and struggle. And I really believe and know in the deepest core of my being that we are in a time where we are now actually so supported to grow and evolve through pleasure, through joy. Again, which is, pleasure always guides us deeper into ourselves. And so that's really at the heart of it. So that's the orgasmolution revolution that's happening right now. And I invite you to join us on Friday. Go register. We'd love to have you. And thank you so much, Jess, for this opportunity to share.
Oh my gosh, Amber, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad. This whole movement is about also building connection rather than we've built connection, I feel like, out of pain in the past. And now this is an opportunity to build connection and community rooted in pleasure, possibility, hope, healing, transformation. And so thank you so much for being a pioneer, a leader, a revolutionary, an evolutionary.
My effortless pleasure.
Yes. And so I hope that you all have found this nourishing, and that you'll check out Amber on Friday. And there will be a link on this newsletter as well, so that you can just click on it. So anyways, have a beautiful evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this, and we're sending you lots of love.